It is with great pleasure that I introduce today's Founders Forum moderator, Danielle Vogel, the founder of Glenn's Garden Market, which is recognized nationally as a leader in sustainability and innovation. Danielle is a professorial lecturer in the management department here at American University. She serves as the assistant director of the Valoric Center for Entrepreneurship, where she teaches courses that emphasize the intersections of sustainability and entrepreneurship. She also helps run the Kogod Business School's Business Incubator, a program that empowers students to create sustainable ventures by giving them the resources they may need for success. Before her start here at American University, Danielle worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years as an environmental policy advisor for both Democrats and Republicans, most notably for the late independent Senator Joseph Lieberman. After earning her JD from American University's Washington College of Law, she worked as an environmental policy litigator for the Department of Justice, where she helped enforce the Clean Air Act. When the effort to pass comprehensive climate legislation failed, Danielle dedicated her career to generating incremental contributions to the climate movement here in DC through the Good Food movement. With this inspiration, Danielle, who comes from a long line of grocers dating back 4 generations, opened Glenn's Garden Market 11 years ago today, intentionally on Earth Day 2013. Through Glenn's, she was able to showcase her entrepreneurial spirit and her desire to uplift others within her own food community. She successfully launched over 90 sustainability-focused food businesses, of which more than 50 were women-owned and nearly 25 were founded by people of color. Danielle then went on to host a weekly radio show called Everyday Enviro, a show that taught its listeners how to reduce their own carbon footprint. But she did not stop there. She then founded a business pitch competition called Accelerate Her DC, a venture that aimed to identify, incubate, and accelerate lady-led, sustainability-minded, small-batch local food companies. In 2020, she further evolved Accelerate Her DC into a grant program that specifically empowered women food founders of color. And as a woman of color myself and one of Danielle's students, I was honored to be asked to introduce her at this forum. If she were to have asked me at the beginning of this semester to introduce her in front of a crowd like this, I would have immediately said no. It was through her unwavering support and belief in me as her student that I had the confidence to say yes. For me, having a female professor who has spent a career uplifting others has been such a unique and valuable opportunity. Being able to learn in a classroom that has not only been built on shared values, being able to learn in a classroom that is built on shared values has fostered an environment for not only me, but for my peers to grow as well. In my humble and maybe biased opinion, I think there is no one better to be leading this conversation today. And with that, today's moderator, Danielle Vogel. Thank you.
Flo, you crushed that. Thank you. That was spectacular. I'd like to say a hearty welcome to my friends. This is Amir, Miles, and Sarah. We're going to learn all about the unbelievable progress that they've been making in sustainability and also in growing and expanding their small food businesses into local hero brands. I'm not going to step on the punchlines. They're going to get to tell their own stories. But I just wanted to start by saying, first, huge thank you to Flo Hunter. That was beautiful. Watching you grow and develop over these last 3 months has been an honor and a joy. And for the rest of her colleagues sitting in this room, that's what presenting with poise and confidence looks like. So way to go, Flo. Amazing. And of course, I'd also like to thank our dean, Dave Marchek, who is the visionary of this sustainability speaker series. So thank you for creating this, bringing it to campus, and giving us sort of venue for this conversation. We really appreciate your leadership. And I'd also like to say thank you to Francesco Vanni Darkirafi, who is the chairman of our Kogod Advisory Council here today. We appreciate your being here. Thank you for your support and leadership. And then finally, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who turned up today. You know, like, it's easy to say you care about the environment. It's another to move your body into a space and activate around that intention. So thank you for being here to listen, to support our founders, and to sort of participate in supporting the small business community here in DC. We're thrilled to have you here. All right, so today is what we call in my family a double hog, which is crazy. But what that means is it's two holidays today, right? So number one, happy Passover, Aziz and Pesach to those who are celebrating. And number two, of course, Earth Day is today. It's the big day, my big day. So speaking of Earth Day, I'm super excited to have these leaders in sustainability here with us today. I'll give you a little bit of a roadmap for how we're going to spend our time together. I've sort of organized my questions around 3 themes. The first, of course, is environmental sustainability, because obviously, right? The second theme is cultural sustainability, because I think all three of us would agree that a great idea doesn't make it very far if you can't build a team around it, right? Your team is your force multiplier. So we really need to talk about the ways in which you're embedding your intentions in your company culture. And then finally, we're going to talk about financial sustainability, right? It's uncomfortable and it's awkward, but we can't keep the lights on if we don't raise money for our businesses. So we want to maximize our impact potential, and that requires making sure we continue to find those dollars. So we'll talk about that. Then, because I've got 3 chefs on stage, we're going to do a little quick fire for fun. We'll get to your questions, and then after the student questions, we'd love to invite everyone downstairs to enjoy the food created by my 3 friends in a little luncheon where you'll have a chance to sort of connect with them one-on-one and enjoy the bounty of their craft. Does that sound like a decent plan for the next few minutes? Awesome. All right, so we're going to start with a quick pitch, because we are, in fact, in a business school, right? So I want you guys to show them how the big kids do it. So I'd love to invite you, and we can start with you, Amir, to do a 30 to 45-second sort of quick pitch intro to you and your business to give them a little bit of insight into your perspective.
Okay, sure. So my name is Amir. My company is called South Block. And I started my first juice bar in 2006 at GW University called Campus Fresh. And then I opened South Block in 2011 with a mission to help make people feel awesome one block at a time. That's our mission, and I always tell people, like, you don't, even if you don't start off, like when I started Campus Fresh, we didn't have a mission. Like, I didn't even know what that was at the time, but we figured it out along the way and figured out what was important to us, and to us, it's making people feel awesome. That's really our business, and then our product is smoothies, juices, and acai bowls.
Can I go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Miles. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Miles Comfort Foods, and we are essentially meeting the modern-day consumer at the intersection of clean convenience and indulgence. We play in the frozen food aisle, which historically has been something I call the aisle of sacrifice, where you walk down the aisle and you don't really want to be there. We're changing the game, right? So we started with a line of mac and cheese that can be found in Target and Whole Foods. Clean label, meaning you can recognize all the ingredients and it tastes like home. I'm a foodie by nature, engineer by trade, but I dropped the engineer part to do this full time. So pleasure to be here.
My name is Sarah Frimpong. I'm the CEO and founder at Well-Found Foods. Well-Found is working to build a world where you can eat better anytime, anywhere. And we're doing that by leveraging machine learning and smart vending to create access to our meals. So you can actually find us on campus here at Anderson Hall in our vending machines. We're also at a few of your micro markets on campus. But really, we started about 11 years ago making food out of our commissary kitchen. We make that food each and every day, and then we send that food out to our vending machines so you can eat, like I said, better anytime and anywhere.
Awesome, thank you. So for our students who are preparing to pitch their ventures at the end of this semester, that's how it's done. Right, nice job, guys. All right, let's come back to you, Miles, if you're up for it.
Yep.
Yeah, sound good? All right, so can you tell us a little bit about your primary sustainability goals? And goals are one thing, but how do you hold your team accountable to those goals consistently?
Yeah, so I mentioned that we're in frozen food, and obviously that's a space that is not known for being sustainable, and that's from the packaging all the way down to how they source their food. So when we first started, number one, we were gonna make sure that all of our ingredients were real ingredients from real places. So our meat, right, is non-GMO, no growth hormones, all that good stuff. You know, we source everything ethically. That was number one. The next stage of that is, okay, how do we reduce packaging waste? Because when you go to frozen, it's a lot of plastic. And so number one, we joined 1% for the Planet as a way to counteract some of our plastic use. The next phase of that is, okay, how do we introduce reduced plastic features into our packaging itself? And so that's being really innovative on how the consumer is presented with our mac and cheese. So we're in the process of exploring that now. It's a huge goal for us. And so we brought in a co-founder a year and a half ago, and that was one of the first things I said to her. I said, we need to stand out from what is considered the status quo, and so that someone feels comfortable not only buying it for their edible, consumable reasons, but they don't feel guilty about it too. And so whenever we source, that's top priority, right? Now, price does come into play there too, just like everything else, but we're not willing to sacrifice that piece to save a penny, right? So whenever we look to hire, we make sure that everyone shares that vision and is as equally aggressive about that as we are.
Awesome. Thank you. So for folks who haven't heard about 1% for the Planet, will you just give us a short primer?
Yep, so 1% for the Planet is an organization that companies like myself tend to join where we say, hey, we're early stage or maybe even later, and we want to at least contribute dollars to an effort to reduce the carbon footprint. So every year, we're part of a membership collective, we participate in all types of programs, but it's our dollar, right? And so that's like how we kind of put, like, we're real about it, right? So it's one step in that right direction, right? It's kind of, that was our first thing we did, but now it's how do we add on top of that?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, for better or worse, I'm sorry, I call her Sarah from POG. For better or worse, small business ownership is not always a highlight reel, right? So can you tell us a little bit about some of your more vexing sustainability challenges and how you're sort of positioning your company to overcome those opportunities?
Sure. So our biggest challenge is also our biggest opportunity, which is also very vexing. So our biggest challenge is food waste. Each and every day, our culinary team comes in at 5 in the morning and they start making food. They're making thousands of meals every day. They're sending that food out to our fleet of about 80 machines, and we hope we sell all of that food, but inevitably we don't. Trying to figure out the right amount of food to send so that you sell as much as you can and you're minimizing that waste is really, really hard. So the way that we're combating that is in 2 ways. The first is donation. So we now donate 100% of the meals that don't sell through local food rescue partners. We work with Nourish Now and Miriam's Kitchen. The second thing we do is we try to predict the amount of food we should make more accurately. That's a machine learning problem. And so we've invested in building our own proprietary forecasting platform. It ingests live sales data. It runs that through its algos to create predictions for how much food to make. We then send that food out, and we really try to dial in that number. Obviously, we don't want everything to sell out. We want to make sure there's enough out there, but we don't want to have too much food waste either. And so that is a huge challenge. I also see it as a huge opportunity for us to really differentiate our business. And it's one that we're continuing to work on and we'll be probably working on forever.
Awesome. And how close are you getting?
We're getting closer and closer, so people are going to freak out. So when we first started doing this, we probably had 20 to 25% of the meals we put into the fridge that didn't sell. We've gotten as low as about 10%. And we're really tracking towards about 8%. That's kind of like our sweet spot number. And if you can imagine, when you start with like 1 or 2 machines, you're like, oh, like what's 20% with 1 or 2 machines? When you get to 80, those numbers from like a P&L standpoint are staggering. And so we are really dialing that in now, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done in that regard.
Way to go. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Amir, can you tell us a little bit about your sustainability standards and how you integrate them into your company culture?
Yeah.
Please.
That vending business is not easy. That's how you and I first
It's true.
connected. Is Danielle put in my first juice vending machine in Glenn's Garden Market, and I figured out, I learned the challenges of those vending machines, especially with product that has short shelf life. So good for you. So yeah, for us, it's been interesting to see like evolutions in restaurant technology to help combat waste. One of the new things that we started doing recently is we're working with a company. Straws have been like top of mind for a little while here. So there's this new company called Strawfish that we really love, and we started using they make their straws out of oyster shells, and they naturally compost in landfill. They'll decompose naturally, so you don't need a commercial composter to come get those and compost them. So we really love that, because that's always been the challenge is there's not enough resources for commercial composting. So the fact that these compost in landfill is really great. And also, to be honest with you, even if you do have compostable stuff, sometimes people don't throw them in the right container. Mm-hmm. So we really love that these can naturally decompose. But for us, the big thing is acai, right? And we're really passionate about the rainforest. We feel that's the lungs of the planet, and we source organic and fair trade acai, so we can trace all of our acai back to the farm. We're making sure those farmers are paid fairly for the product. We know exactly where it's coming from. We're helping to sustain the local economy of those farmers and their communities. And also we're helping to support preserving trees in the rainforest, preventing deforestation, which has been a big thing. People cutting down trees to make room for cattle, because cattle makes a lot of money. So if we can support product that grows on trees and they can make as much or more money from that, then there's no reason to cut down the trees. So that's our big thing. It was with the acai. We go through a ton of acai, and you know, we work with specific supplier that is fair trade, and we know exactly where it comes from. So that's really our passion when it comes to the planet.
Sourcing integrity is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Thank you for holding your vendors accountable. That's awesome. So I'd like to pivot a little bit into cultural sustainability, because a good idea can get you on the field, but it doesn't get you into the end zone. You need to surround yourself by a team that can help you travel that distance. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you guys do that. So we'll come back to you, Sarah, if that's okay. All right, so in my opinion, one of the very best parts of founding a small business is that you get to create the kind of world you want to live in, at least within sort of the boundaries of your own team. So I was wondering if you could tell us about the ways in which you've sort of brought your best intentions for company culture to life.
So, I think it really comes down to hiring. I've taken, and I've realized the hard way, right, by not doing it right, but really taking the time to hire intentionally and slowly. What I've learned about the startup journey is that you have plans and they totally fall apart. And so, I've made sure to hire very slowly and hire for people that have demonstrated flexibility, right? Knowing that they can kind of, I'm going to say, these are the challenges I see, this is the opportunity. I hope that's the case in 12 months, but, do you want to ride? Is really how I bring people onto the team, and that's created a culture of resilience that I think is the reason that we're still here 11 years later and, growing and pivoting and things like that.
So how do you go about hiring for resilience and flexibility? Like, how do you formulate those questions? How do you get to the heart of it?
I like to ask questions about their background, their past jobs, the things they've liked, the things they haven't liked, how they've approached challenges. And it usually kind of comes out in the wash. I think in how people even talk about challenges and opportunities, you can understand if they exhibited some resilience. Yeah, exactly. And look, whenever we're hiring, we're always trying to see, do you have the skills to do the job that we're bringing you on for? But there's this other set of soft skills and then that flexibility that you're trying to see, okay, can you come in here and can you really come for the ride with us? Because as an organization, WellFound is very resilient, and it's the reason that we're still here after all this time.
Yeah. So that's great advice to those of you guys who are seeking jobs, right? Think about not just the question they're asking, but the values that they're trying to assess and how you think about answering those questions in interviews. All right, let's go to you, Miles. So Miles, you've traditionally had a pretty small team. Yep. You mentioned in your pitch that you brought on a late-stage co-founder. I was wondering, sort of like, what are your strategies for scaling your vibe as you scale your team?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what you were talking about. When I was hiring my co-founder and how we hire in the future is not strictly based off a resume. The resume, for me, is a very small piece. I hire off of team fit personality-wise, and one of the big questions I ask is, listen, this is a very small company, which means you're going to be doing a lot of different things. Are you ready to battle? Because you're not going to be an employee that has a very set to-do list. You come in at 9 a.m., leave at 5. You're in it with me. This is ground zero. Let's get to it. So that's really how I vet out, because it's not meant for everyone at that early stage. And so as we continue to hire, it's going to be like this for a while. I need people that want to ride, and I tell them straight up, there are going to be some days that are rough. Like, it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows Monday through Friday. Based on what you've been doing, what are you looking to do next? If you've been working corporate and you're like, I'm done with corporate, I want to challenge myself, great. But if you're like, hey, I want a 9 to 5, pay me this amount, this may not be a fit for you, right? Now if you're in it with me, I've got your back. Like, I'm your boss, but I'm also going to make sure that you have the tools you need to grow as a human being as well. And there's going to be some balance, right? Like, things that mental days, right? Mm-hmm. Things that make sure that you are your best self when you show up for work. And so as we scale, yes, we need the skill set, but that stuff's teachable. Like, I can teach you things you may not know, as long as you fill the voids and the gaps that we need, but you have the personality that can grow with us and are willing to grow, right? It's another thing too. So kind of how I look at scaling up.
Yeah, for sure. And not to make things awkward, but when we're wrong in the hiring process and there's a mismatch in values, how do you handle that?
Fast.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because it happens pretty quick. Like, pretty fast after the first month, right? We're just like, all right, that interview is a different person who I'm dealing with now. And it's in their best interest too to discuss it and maybe even part ways, right? Because you're gonna waste each other's time, and then the more you prolong it, the more contentious that relationship is gonna get, and the business suffers as well. So definitely take your time hiring, but if it's not a fit, you gotta figure out, you gotta part ways quick, and then use that as a lesson to, okay, what do I need to look for the next hire that I didn't get with that hire?
Yeah, agreed. I learned this lesson the hard way just too many times. But what I found ultimately was that if somebody is acting in a way that's inconsistent with the values and they continue in a position of leadership, it makes a mockery of the values. It shows the rest of the team that you don't value the values, and that just does not work.
Yeah, yep, and if that person's customer facing, right?
Yeah.
And when you're early on, everyone's customer facing. So you might have a vendor come back and say, hey, I spoke with so-and-so, they did me dirty, right? And it looks bad on not only you as a founder, but as a company. So you have to eliminate the opportunity for that to happen by hiring the right people.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Amir, so you've had to navigate the morass of a much larger team than the rest of us, but you've done it so beautifully. The South Block brand is vibrant, it's inclusive, it's fun, and that's not a marketing campaign. That permeates every single element of the South Block experience. So I was wondering, and you sort of mentioned the notion of sort of making people feel awesome, and we know that you sort of lean into the Kale Yeah mantra. Mm-hmm. How have you operationalized that experience in a way that it creates a true consistency, both for your team and for your clientele?
Yeah, no, I think so much of what both of you has said, and what you just said, Miles. I don't think it matters what stage, if you're early stage, late stage, mid stage, like that always, for me, like we're 15 locations. We have 5 in construction right now. We have 300 employees. We're looking at a new market in Boston, maybe North Carolina. We're always going to treat it like a startup mentality, because the last thing I ever want is for people to say like, "Oh, South Block used to be cool, but now their culture used to be good." Because I've interviewed a lot of people who've come to us, and I said, "Why are you looking for a new job?" Well, I work here, but it used to be a good culture, but things have changed. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I don't want people to say about us, right? So at some point, you got to make a conscious decision that company culture is the most important thing to your business, and you have to talk about it all the time. You have to be consistent with how you're saying it in your employee handbook, in your lookbook, and all your communication with your team, with your guests. It has to be the most important thing to you, your people, your culture. And I always tell people that I don't know if there's any business out there that has 100% perfect company culture, but you can focus on it 100% of the time and make that your priority. And that's how it's going to become something that becomes a living, breathing organism within your company. And you'll notice people in your organization starting to talk the same way that you do about culture and about people, and then it just starts to kind of spread throughout your organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. The best part is when the team starts to hold one another accountable to those values and standards. It really, you've achieved traction at that point.
Right, and you're right. It starts with hiring the right people. There's a book you guys probably know called The Energy Bus. Mm-hmm. Kind of what you guys were saying, like when you have someone who's toxic, who's an energy vampire, making sure you take care of that right away so it doesn't spread, because it's so hard to build a positive company culture, but it's so easy to destroy it. Oh, yeah. Like, building trust is one of the hardest things to do, but it's one of the easiest things to lose.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to pivot into financial sustainability for a few minutes, because if the lights go out, it's lights out.
Sweat.
Right, yeah, hate to see it. Let's stick with you, Amir, because you have navigated this extremely successfully. So you recently closed a monumental deal with Savory Fund. Mm-hmm. And as I was sort of like looking into the contours of the deal, I was reading up about their selection criteria. And what that fund in particular is looking for is entrepreneurs who are super resilient and super dedicated to sustainability in particular. So we've got like check and check. But the fact of the matter is it needs to be a two-way chemistry fit, right? Like them wanting you is only half of the equation. So I'm wondering sort of how you thought about whether or not they were the right strategic growth partners for South Block.
Yeah, that was all I thought about when we went out to raise money. We've never done, I guess I started South Block in 2011. We kind of had been really scrappy in our growth, really opportunistic. So use cash flow along the way to grow, slow and steady. Never raised any money. We just closed our first private equity round February 1st. And when I started the process a year and a half ago, I got all the way to probably a week away from signing with a group, and I walked away because my gut was telling me it wasn't the right culture fit for us, and that the last thing I ever want to do is sell out the company culture to the highest bidder. So I walked away, and I found Savory Fund, which they aligned with us perfectly on company culture, on our mission, on our vision, and recognize the value in that. Because I think a lot of people, they go raise money and then they grow for the sake of growth, and we're not going to do that even now. Like if we can open 5 next year, if we can open 10, if we can open 20, and we can do it in a way that keeps our company culture, our quality product, our experience, our people experience intact, then great. But if we feel like we can't do any, then we'll stop and not do any growth until we get all of our ducks in a row. But I think always have the mindset of running your business as though it's in bankruptcy. Like, don't be wasteful with your money, even when you raise money. Continue to operate it the way you got to where people want to invest in your business is the way you should keep operating it after people invest in their business. Don't start getting wasteful with your spending, careless with your culture. So yeah, we found great partners. We've been partners for, I don't know, a couple months now. It's been amazing. Like so make sure you align with your private equity partners, first of all, as people, just like when you're hiring people. Yep. Like make sure that it's people that you feel like would be a good fit for your team, and who value what's special about your business and don't want to change that.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal, so to speak. Miles, you did something that I had never seen before you did it, which was that you did a crowd-funded equity raise through Honeycomb. So could you tell us a little bit about sort of how that process worked and whether you'd recommend it? Yeah,
so I've been raising money now in various formats for a few years. And when it comes to crowdfunding, it's a different ball game than the private equity side to a degree. So crowdfunding is tapping into your community, so family and friends, and then your network. And you're essentially presenting your business to your community and saying, hey, I'm a growing brand. I now need your help, if you believe in us, to help us grow further. I wouldn't call it scary, but it's one of those moments where, you're presenting your baby to the world. And you're not asking them to go to the store and buy your product. You're asking them to invest cash, right? And it's a little bit different. This was actually our second crowdfunding campaign that we did. The first one was more of a debt deal, which means our investors were getting paid back month over month with a certain interest rate. This is more, you may not get your money back because we're talking a long-term investment. The upside is high, but it's definitely a higher risk than, let's say, a typical debt deal. So the interesting thing about doing this is that you really get to engage with your community about the ins and outs of your business. And by doing so, you learn more about your business as well, because they might ask you questions that you might not have thought of before, and you get to figure out really what they like and don't like. And for me personally, this was the first time that my community even knew that, for example, what a convertible note was. This is an investment vehicle. So it was great to educate my community on how to begin investing dollars even outside the stock market. Because that's a problem for us, right? We typically don't know what to do with the little cash on the side. And I tell them, hey, you can invest in a minority-owned business that you believe in with a pretty significant potential return. So I think the process, it's not easy because you're every day you're marketing your brand, you're waving your pom-pom saying, hey, look at me, check out what I'm doing. But the great feeling is that when you have a community that believes in you and wants to invest, it gives you additional confidence, I think, and it kind of puts a battery in your back. Like, okay, I've got a team behind me of folks that believe in what we're doing. While the effort is high, the reward is even higher.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
So did you feel like it was successful in the end?
Yeah, yep, it was a success. It was a small amount of cash, but because I was able to get my community involved, it launched us even further forward, for sure.
My friend, you are deep in it right now with the raise, and the landscape is tough, right? So Black founders command about 1% of available VC. The math is worse for Black female founders. We're talking about 1/3 of a point. So I've watched at very close range as you have sort of brilliantly navigated this morass, deploying creativity, all of the values that you hire for, you have demonstrated in this process. So I understanding that it may be too soon to be asking this question, I'm just wondering if you can give us a little bit of insight about which approaches you found most success with, and for those aspiring founders perhaps sitting in the room, what lessons have you learned the hard way that you could give them advice to end run?
Sure. I'll start with where we've been most successful, and this is just us, right? Angels. So the majority of our fundraising has come through angels. We've done convertible notes. We just did our first equity round, which was very exciting. And I will say this, we've done angels, we've pitched early stage VCs. There is nothing like a passionate angel who has your back, because they believe in what you're doing. These are real people. You're not necessarily a part of some portfolio where they're like, if you're not performing, don't call me. Like, I have 5 other bets, that can go through. And they have networks of other real people who want to support businesses like yours. So for us, angels have been huge, and it's where, frankly, all, if not a majority of our funding has come from. What would I say for others looking to raise capital? There are different ways to raise capital. So for Well-Found Foods, we've done equity and we've done debt. We've done debt because we have vending machines, and those are cash-generating assets, and that's kind of more appropriate funding for that kind of thing, for that vending machine. And so I would say really educate yourselves on the different ways you can raise money, because it's not all like going to VCs and angels and pitching. There are different ways you can bring money into your business, and they serve different purposes because the capital has different expectations on them. And you can be smart and strategic about that and have different kind of vehicles for different kind of things that you're trying to do in your business. The last thing I leave you with is, understanding what that capital is looking for, and understanding what it looks like if you deliver those returns and what it looks like if you don't, right? And there might be some forecasts that you make and you keep in your Google Drive and you don't show anybody, right? You're like, this is just for me. But really understand, again, when you're taking capital from somebody, there's an expectation on that, whether it's debt, whether it's equity, whatever it may be, and make sure you're kind of very wise to that, especially what you're going to use it for, so you can make sure to deliver that return.
Good advice. Thank you. All right. I've got 3 chefs on stage. We're going to have a little fun with the quick fire challenge. So I spent 10 years on Capitol Hill before I transitioned into food, and I can't tell you how many times just nonsense would ensue, and I'd think to myself, this never happened in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many of those experiences you all have had. So I'm not going to call on anyone in particular. Just raise your hand when you have the best answer. Let's have some fun. Okay.
I got a really good one, and this is 2 years removed or a year and a half removed. It still bugs me. So one of our portfolio companies is Andreessen Horowitz. So they have a smaller fund that they operate, and we did an accelerator program with them where it was minority-owned founders, and we're all maybe 10 companies and really great group. Midway through the program, they announced that they had invested in the gentleman from WeWork.
Perfect.
Now, he received $1 billion, right? Yeah. We received, I won't even say the amount, it was not $1 billion. So we were all in the room, and we were actually on the call with them when we got the news. And we all turned to the person running this event, and we said, sorry for my language, what the hell? And they just kind of shrugged their shoulders, and they said, listen, this is Silicon Valley. It's different. And we all felt a certain way, because we're like, hey, here we are, active companies. This gentleman just trashed his company and was able to turn back around and raise $1 billion worth of capital. And I think moments like that hit really hard because you ask yourself, what am I not doing? What am I doing wrong that I can't be in that same room? And it's an issue of bias, it's an issue of network, things that we've all heard about, but when it happens directly in your face and the person that's responsible for it kind of just says, it is what it is, it really stings, right? But then at the same time, as a founder, you have to look at it as, I'm gonna put that aside, and I'm gonna make sure that I build the right way, and I'm gonna provide an actual company that provides actual value, and in the end, I'll be better off. So and that happens often, right? That's one story. This happens a lot, but this was one that just was like,
Ooh,
in my face.
totally.
Yeah.
All right, next. What's the craziest business problem you've had to solve?
Ding, ding.
Hit it.
Well, let me tell you guys, we had just launched our proprietary user interface on all of our machines. Very exciting stuff. It took way too long to do. It went out, and sales are coming through. Sales look great coming through. But I'm checking our bank account, and like, it doesn't look quite right. And so I end up kind of running my reports from the vending machine sales, and I realized that about 20 to 30% of the revenue is not accounted for. And I keep digging, and we find out that there is a bug in the UI, and if you put multiple items in your cart, you are only charged for one item.
Oh.
Yet you got everything else.
Bank error in your
I had a legit breakdown. It was a Saturday. It was a rainy Saturday, and I was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" I'm not a software engineer, also, so I couldn't fix it myself. And so I was calling all these people. I was like, "You need to fix this. Turn off the cart feature. Turn off that." And it was a bug. It ended up getting resolved, but the problem honestly probably continued for about like 2.5 weeks before I was like, and before then we got it sorted out. But that was a crazy problem.
Ooh.
It sucked.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I can't not mention COVID
Yeah.
because that was
Problem.
in my almost 20 years the hardest thing we've had to deal with. And first of all, no one's ever called me a chef before, so thank you.
Yeah.
You don't want me cooking anything. I can blend stuff, but I'm not cooking stuff. I can throw things in a blender though. But yeah, COVID. I mean, thinking back on that. When they say, okay, you're an essential business, you can stay open, but you cannot have people in your restaurant. Like, okay, how do we serve people? So, I think when we were faced with those challenges, like from day one, like I said earlier, building trust is one of the hardest things to do. It's also one of the easiest things to break. So the way we looked at it is, this is a great opportunity to build trust with our team, to show them that we're there for them, we got their back. So we made it a priority to make sure that anybody that wanted to work was going to get hours. We were going to stay open as long as we were able to, and make sure that we were keeping our team employed, make sure they were continuing to make money, and make sure they were safe as well. And that built a lot of trust between us and our team that you cannot put a dollar figure on. So yeah, I mean, I think just dealing with those challenges, like make sure when you start your business, I always tell people, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I think in a lot of ways it's better if you don't have it all figured out, because I think you said earlier, Frim, like when you start your business, like the whole plan goes out the window. The main thing is you have to be adaptable, you have to be prepared to pivot, you have to be prepared to find solutions. And if you and your team are all in that mindset, even when you're hit with a challenge like COVID, you're like, all right, let's go. We're ready to solve problems. So that's a superpower you want your business to have. And always leading with your mission and your people, making every decision on what's best for my team. And I always tell my team, like, we love our customers, but I love my team more because I know the customers are going to have a great experience if my team is loved, right? So, but you got to start with your people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we're professional problem solvers. And when you make that part of the culture, you're creating a formula for success. I love the way you're thinking about that. All right, do you want to do a funny one, since that one was kind of serious?
Oh. Sorry.
No, it's really, how could we not mention COVID? Right, for sure. What is the funniest excuse you've ever gotten for a call out?
Oh man, I don't remember. So I don't remember the excuse for the call out, but somebody didn't show up. This was back in the Campus Fresh days, GW actually, but I still remember it because someone didn't show up, and I called them on their phone to see where they were. They didn't answer, but then later that night, her boyfriend called me, really angry. Why was this number on his girlfriend's cell phone? And I said, she works for me, and she didn't show up. He wasn't buying it. He wanted to kick my ass. And I'm like, no. So that, not exactly a call out, but yeah, didn't show up, and that's what happened.
You go.
You have a good one you're willing to share?
I can't think of one. I mean, usually, yeah. I mean, if we get a reason, it's good, right? I don't really have one. You go.
So I wouldn't call it funny, but it was like monumental in the journey of the company. So I was at this time still working a full-time engineering job, and the business was still part-time, even though it was full-time, just 2 full-time jobs. So I was at my office, and at this point, I had a team of 3 guys that were in the kitchen cooking mac and cheese for me while I was in the office. And we were launching, at this point, Target. So this is one of our biggest orders ever. And I'm sitting in my office, it's 10 a.m., I'm not getting a text from a shift supervisor. I'm like, all right, maybe he just didn't text me. And then 12 o'clock, I get a text from my employee, and it says, hey, guy not to be named was arrested last night. And so none of us are
If
at
I
the
had a
kitchen.
buck for every time I heard that one.
And I think that night I decided to quit my job because I said, there's no way I can do both things right now. And so I shouldn't say this, but him getting arrested was probably one of the best things for the company because it gave me the push that I needed to just take that leap of faith and go full time into the business.
Awesome. I guess.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's okay now.
Okay, good. All right, so we want to kick it to your questions. So I'm gonna ask one more question. So you've got a moment to reflect, and then we're gonna pass the mic and let you guys do it for a little bit. All right. So again, we're sitting here in a business school, and I'm wondering, what did you learn in school that helped prepare you to lead your business successfully? Whether it was a class you took, a club you joined, an experience you had, an internship you did. What advice do you have for these guys who want to sort of walk in your footsteps for how they can maximize their time on campus?
Yeah, I went to Virginia Tech. I got my degree in graphic design and marketing, and man, having that skill in business is so important. Like to be able to just come up with my own marketing stuff and not have to call upon somebody. So I would definitely say like try to get some sort of understanding or skill set of marketing and design. If you can, just know your way around it. It helps a lot. Like even if you're just designing a business card or a sticker, So that really that helped me out a lot. And to be able to be creative in your own business is so much fun because that's really, I got out of school, I got a corporate job in a marketing department and sat in a cube every day from 9 to 5. And at first I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm getting paid well. I'm doing maybe 2 hours of work, having an hour long lunch, and then waiting till 5 o'clock. And after like 6 months, I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. And my dad was a professor who then started his own business. He was in video rental business, and I worked in his video stores growing up. And I thought the lesson I learned was I do not want to have my own business because I saw how hard he had to work and that he didn't have paid vacations and all that. And I thought that's what I wanted until I got my corporate job. And then I realized that he wasn't so crazy because he was passionate about it. I think when you have something that you're excited about when you wake up in the morning and that keeps you up at night thinking about it, like that's where kind of the whole idea of work-life balance kind of gets blurred. And I think that's what makes work exciting is when it's something that you're passionate about and doesn't feel like you're watching the clock all day, right?
Yeah, you can just kind of like find that flow state.
Yeah. You have to be a little bit like stubborn and crazy too.
For sure.
Yeah.
You can look a lot crazy. But I think that background and expertise in marketing is so evident in the branding for your company. It's so authentic. It's so differentiated. So I think that's great advice because it's paid dividends for you certainly.
Yeah.
What do you guys recommend?
So I'll say this: when I was in high school, I felt as though if I gave 100% effort, I get 100% results. I took that into college and went into engineering ill-prepared. And I was putting in 100% results and get 100% effort, get 20% results. So in other words, I was failing a lot. And that 4 years taught me how to be resilient. Like it taught me that you can always come back and always bounce back. So when I started a business, I was kind of hardened, where like when things would go wrong, I didn't really take it to heart to a degree. I learned how to stand strong. And so I tell folks it wasn't the technical piece of engineering that really helped me, it was the soft skills that helped me along this now 8-9 year journey.
Yeah.
Good one.
My first job out of college, and I studied economics, was in B2B sales. I had read somewhere that if you want to have your own business, which I knew I wanted to do, you should do a sales job first. So, obviously I did a sales job first. It was so hard. I had to make my own lead list. I had to cold call attorneys. Cold calling attorneys, they're the worst people to call. I had to cold call attorneys. I had to sell them on these like $20,000 sponsorships. And it was just really hard. That being said, I learned so much about resilience through that process. I learned about just getting the job done. We had to build our own lead list. You have to figure out like the attorney you have to call and like the practice, right? You have to get past the gatekeeper. Say, is Bill there? Okay, I'll give him a call back. You don't need to take my name and number, right? You start to really build those skills. And so it taught me a lot about resilience. It taught me how to sell, which has been important in like every stage of Well-Found Foods. And yeah, it's an experience that I wouldn't give up for anything. But when I was in it, man, a lot of crying in the bathroom, I'll tell you that much.
Totally. So entrepreneurship it's risk-taking, right, implicitly. So what I'm hearing from our speakers is they got practice failing. Use school for that, right? Like when you guys get up to pitch your ventures, it's low stakes. There's a grade on the line, but it's relatively low stakes because your house isn't on the line, right? So use our entrepreneurship competitions, use your entrepreneurship classes to get sort of battle ready, right? To do this successfully. All right, we'd love to take your question. Should we start with the internet? Do we have any internet questions? None yet? All right, my friends in the room. Yes, please, Sarah. Would you mind introducing yourself and sharing your year and stuff?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Oh, hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm a junior, and I'm in a class with Professor Vogel. I wanted to first say thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Professor Vogel for spearheading this forum. So first off, I'm obsessed with Well-Found Foods. I've been eating it since I was a freshman, so thank you for your service. And second, whether it's meeting people where they are or even social media, what have you found to be the most successful way to acquire customers?
So I found, social media obviously became pretty big along the way. Instagram, acai bowls, people didn't know. I started selling acai bowls in 2005. No one knew what they were. But then with Instagram, people could see it, and then they understood it and wanted it. But no, I think for us, it's just connection with the community, grassroots, being involved with your community, getting to know the other businesses, which Danielle was amazing at. That's, I think, why we're all sitting here. But yeah, getting involved with your community. That's what South Block means. When I opened South Block, we were on this back corner of this building that they were building that nobody wanted. This spot is 700 square foot on the south block of this tower, and that's where the name came from. And they were building a north block and a south block tower, and there was literally no foot traffic on that back side of the building. But from what I learned at GW with Campus Fresh was that if you get involved, we were very involved with the campus life, student organizations, fundraisers. People found us. So that was the meaning of South Block, is that we're going to build a community around this block by getting involved and supporting other businesses and being also charitable in the community. We started a nonprofit called Fruitful Planet. So we donate fresh fruits and vegetables to food banks in the community. We work with elementary schools, donating fruits and vegetables to low-income students. So just being involved in the community and being out there, I think, has been our most successful way of reaching customers. We do that in every location we open, make that a priority.
Totally.
For us, it's really been placing vending machines. So
Do you have any here at AU?
we do. You can find us in Anderson Hall. So it's really been placing vending machines, and for us, people often find our machines at a very particular point in time, right, when they need food. So we're at Anderson Hall here. We are in a lot of hospitals. We're in a lot of ERs. We're in airports. We're at the White House. And so it's these places where you're kind of trapped and you're hungry and you need something nourishing. And we actually got one bit of customer feedback a few weeks ago. And a young woman was saying that she was in the hospital with her grandmother unexpectedly. And it was very late at night. She went to go find food for them. And she was like, we were resigned to eating chips and cookies that night. And then we came across this blue and yellow machine in this oasis of despair, right? And we were like, oh, we can eat this good food. And she said that it was one of the best nights she ever spent with her grandmother. And they were up all night talking and enjoying these meals. And she was like, we ate the gingerbread oats. I was like, you remember the gingerbread oats, right? So the best thing that we can do to acquire customers is, one, to be where they are, where they need us, and then to make sure that experience is really smooth when they get there. And that's really the best thing we can do. We honestly don't do much else marketing. We need to. I'll talk to you about that. But otherwise, it's just putting those machines in the right place.
So kind of similar, where our whole goal is, how do I get this mac and cheese into your mouth, by any means necessary? Because it's very easy to quote unquote hide behind socials and just post all day. But there's an experience that comes with trying something you really, really enjoy. So not only are we doing in-store demos, but I will pop up at a student-run organization and say, hey, I know you have this event. I'll give you guys lunch, right? Or it could be your apartment complex, right? My goal is to get that spoon into many locations as possible, because that's the quickest way to get someone to remember the product, right? Because nowadays we're flooded with ads. You open up Instagram, you're inundated with information. But I guarantee if you take a bite, it's going to resonate with you for the rest of the day. And you're going to be like, now I have a craving for XYZ. So we're trying to be out in the community and with our retail partners as much as possible as our primary.
Yeah, this is definitely true. Get your product in people's mouths, give it away, let them try it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. The product is the best billboard, for
Yeah.
sure. And your advice all seems, it's very experiential, whether it's making a terrible day better, creating a sensory memory, or building community. It's all about bringing people into the process of the brand that you're building.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, any other? Please, Dean Marchik.
First of all, thank you for organizing this, Professor. And thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Tomorrow on this stage, we have the CEO of EY, or formerly Ernst & Young, one of the biggest companies in the world, 400,000 employees. I think there are only 25 companies in the whole world that have 400,000 employees. And I'm sitting here thinking, I want to ask you two questions. One is, who has a harder job, you all or the CEO of EY? And the second is, who has a better job, you or the CEO of EY?
Oh man. I've talked about this a lot, but on different scale, right? When I first started my first juice bar, I was doing everything. I'd wake up in the morning, serve customers all day, clean up, take the trash out, go home at night, do marketing, do emails, do events. Starts all over the next day. I used to wake up every morning and I'd be like, time to make the donuts, Some of you are probably too young for that, but so it was hard, and I think as business grows, it continues to be hard. It's just in a different way. So I think the challenges just change as you scale. So, I've never run a company with 400,000 people, but now with our company, 300 people, 15 locations, going 20, we're trying to solve problems for scale into new markets, things like that. So the problems just become different. I think the work is always there, the stress is there. It just where your focus is, and I think figuring out where the best place for you to focus and where you can hire other people to do things that maybe you shouldn't be spending your time on is what's important along the way.
Yeah, I'll say too, for the owner of or CEO of an EY, if they mess up on a large scale, it's on CNN. Millions of people are going to know about it. So he's in the public eye, and that's a level of pressure and scrutiny that I don't have to deal with. However, if I mess up on a grand scale, it's my family, my friends, my network, so the pressure is still there. And when you're early on, right, and I use this metaphor a lot as a CEO, you know, if you're a solo founder, you've got one other person on your team, imagine you've bought a 10-story building, and each floor of that building is a separate department. You're the only one in that building, and each floor, the phone is ringing. And your goal is to answer every phone, and you don't have the answer to most of those questions. So it gets very tiring very quickly, but the more you answer questions, the more you learn. And so it's like, how much can you stay in this race until you learn more and more, and it can grow and bring in people to your office building. So I don't think there's a direct answer. I think it just depends on the level you're at, like you're saying. I mean, I go to bed and my mind is just like, it's hard to shut down. And I wake up and I'll get an email and I'm like, if I answer this way, it could be a terrible outcome. This way, terrible outcome. And now you have to kind of just like, it's a gut instinct. You don't have a large team to say, you figure it out. So it's different.
Yeah, I'd agree with what they both said. I think it's hard at any level. To the question of like who has a harder job, I think they're all hard. The other question though was which one would you prefer to have? Is that right? It depends on the day, but I think if I were to zoom out, I would say probably on a smaller scale because you get to see the impact of what you're doing more immediately. And I imagine the further out you get, I imagine you might get a little jaded, but you also you can't see how you're like changing people's days. Sure. And I love that every customer support email goes directly into my inbox. I give it to the rest of the team. I get it first. And I'm able to see, exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that gets me up in the morning.
True.
Anything from the internet? Yes. And then we'll come to you, sir.
We do have an online question, and it's for Miles. What is the most valuable tip you'd share with founders raising money in less conventional ways?
Most valuable tip is, and this is even just for fundraising in general, is just be prepared to swing the bat a lot, because you're not gonna send one email and someone's gonna say, hell yeah, here's $1 million, right? It's more of, and it could be a great fit, it could be bad timing. And so you're up to bat and you're pitching all the time. And so number one, don't be discouraged by the no's, learn from the no's. And when it comes to creative financing ways, 100% get creative, because founder A's method may not work for you because of your business model or even because of, unfortunately, where you live. And there's a lot of different vehicles to fundraise: debt financing, crowdfunding, equity funding, inventory financing. I mean, it's a long list. And there's now resources out there to kind of help you choose which avenue to take. And so whoever asked that, I'm happy to chat with about all the different creative avenues to fundraising.
Awesome. I think we're going to send our last question to the chairman.
Yes, I mean, some people say that the CEO or the founder job is very lonely, right? It's up to you to make the decision. So have you created some type of advisory groups or people you go to ask for advice to enable you to minimize the mistake and maximize the opportunity? And, since we're here and we have the dean, can an organization like this enable you to accelerate minimizing the risk just by, having a flow or a dialogue so that you can benefit from the experience in this room or on this campus, as an example?
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd say, yes, it is a lonely job. And also, I'll speak for me, and I'm sure you guys have done the same. We have a board that I lean on. We have investors that I lean on. One thing we didn't say about investors, these are people who are literally bought into your success. And they will pick up the phone, and they are under the tent with you. They're in the boat. And that's a huge resource. Every time we bring in new investors, I get so excited because I'm like, I have another cheerleader who's going to help me get this ball across the line. But I'll also say this: you can ask everybody for advice, and you can talk to them about, the issue you're tackling. They do not have all the context. And so you end up taking that back and you sit alone again and you make the best decision that you can with the information that you have. But I do think, having those different avenues, those different groups to go to and get that input is super helpful. And organizations like this, again, just smart people, will provide smart solutions, but no one knows everything that you know, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it does feel lonely, but one thing I've done to combat that is I say bring my team into the dream, right? And this occurred to me several years back. I have 2 daughters, and they would tell me about their dream that they had the night before, and you guys have all had people tell you about their dreams, right? And one thing that I noticed is when they tell me that I was in their dream, like they said, Dad, you were in my dream and you were riding a unicorn across the mountain, and I'm like, then I start asking questions. I'm like, well, what else was I doing? What happened after I flew over the mountain, you know? So when you're in someone's dream, you become much more curious and you ask more questions and more engaged. So when I say bring your team into your dream, that's what I started doing, is building my team around making them feel like part of my vision, part of my dream, not just by telling them I want you to be part of my dream, but giving them some of the same opportunities that motivate me as an entrepreneur, like profit sharing. So for my support team, we're all in it together. They all have phantom units. So when we're more profitable, they make more money, just like I make more money. When we did our equity deal, they had vested phantom units, so they all got transaction bonuses, so everyone made money on the equity deal. So, think about things like that you can, because it's just insurance for you, it's protection for you, and then you have other people around you who care about the business and who also benefit from the success of the business. And just before I came here today, we had our Monday, every Monday we have a huddle, and it's very much a democracy. We talk about ideas, I get everyone's input. Somebody has to make a decision at the end of the day, but everyone really is passionate and cares about what ideas we're talking about, because, I think one, because they just love being part of the company, because you have to create a great culture, but then 2, like bringing your team into the dream, giving them things like flexible PTO, things that, anything you can that make them feel like they are an entrepreneur and an owner in the business. That just benefits you and allows you to also have a little bit more freedom and flexibility.
So I have a advisory board that I lean on pretty heavily just for day-to-day or month-to-month questions. I also have a Rolodex of just contacts that are just in the industry that have been there, done that I can email and say, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ, what do you think? And then finally, I have an unofficial, I'll call it like a mental advisory board. Some of my family members. And it's funny, one day I was in the car with my stepdaughter, she's 10. We were playing random Q&A, and it was asked to her what my biggest fear was. I never told her this, but so quick, she goes, failure. And I went, holy shit. She's right. And so I'll ask her and she's 10, so she has all these ideas. And every now and then there'll be a grand idea that I've never thought of. So I learned to be very open to ideas from folks who really don't know about the industry, because every now and then there's a jewel in there. And so with her, other family members, folks that I meet, I might be having a bad mental day, and I just say, I need to just unleash, right? Because it gets very, very complex up here, entangled, and sometimes I just need to let it out. And they might not be able to give advice or guide me, but just that ear does wonders.
Yeah.
Totally.
There's a lot of people out there too, mentors. You'd be surprised how many people are wanting to help you. There's been so many people outside of South Block who've helped, I've gotten advice from, especially along the way of fundraising. But that failure piece, one thing I'll say, the risk, minimizing risk, through selling equity, which is one thing that I did. And yeah, in a lot of ways it feels like, yes, I can breathe a little bit more stress, but you still have that fear of failure. So the day after you close the deal, nothing really changes. You're still business as usual. A lot of people, I think, have this idea that everything's going to change after that, and it doesn't. It's just different. And I think, that's what happens when you're running a 400,000 people company or a 10-person company. You're still driven kind of by that, in the back of your mind, that fear of failure.
well, I don't want to end on the word failure.
No.
All right.
Or
so
the idea of success.
There it is.
Yeah.
I will say, to bring it up a little bit, there are 3 things that you guys can do to support these brilliant small business owners. You've already done the first, right? You came and you listened to their stories. The second thing you can do is engage in this experiential marketing campaign that they were describing. Come downstairs, eat their food. We have provided lunch for all of you guys, so we're hosting it in DMTI 111 right after this. So if you've got the time, come try these awesome, delicious products. And then number 3, tell your friends, right? Like if you've learned something today that inspired you, and you happen to notice like a well-found jarred salad in the DAV, put your arm around somebody and tell Sarah's story. You know, if you're walking down the frozen aisle and you see Miles Mac, like give it a shot. It's super delicious. There are now South Blocks all over the city. It's not hard to find them, right? So just step inside and find ways to actively support these businesses. And I'll just conclude by saying thank you so much for being here today, for sharing your stories, for giving us some inspiration, a bit of a roadmap. And now we can't wait to eat your food. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Way to go.